The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, and Penelope Mitchell stepped into the marble lobby of Mitchell Hospitality Group headquarters just as a whirlwind of sunshine burst through the revolving doors, nearly colliding with him. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." The woman clutched a tray of precariously balanced coffee cups, her green eyes wide with mortification as she steadied herself. "I totally didn't see you there. Are you okay?" Penelope Penn, to the few people who knew him well, found himself momentarily speechless. It wasn't the near collision that caught him off guard. It was her. She wore a bright yellow sundress that seemed entirely impractical for a professional building, her auburn hair pulled into a messy ponytail with loose curls framing her face. She radiated warmth in a way that felt almost aggressive in the cool, sterile environment of his company's headquarters. "I'm fine," he said, his voice coming out more clipped than he intended. He straightened his already perfect tie and moved past her toward the security desk. "Phew. Okay, good. I would have felt terrible if I'd spilled coffee all over that gorgeous suit." She was still talking, he realized, following him toward the desk. "Is it Armani? You look very important. Are you important? Of course you're important, everyone here probably is. I'm Willow Torres, by the way. First day as the new hospitality coordinator. Well, technically coordinator assistant, but I like to think positively about these things." Penn glanced at her briefly, noting how she seemed utterly unbothered by his lack of response. She was smiling at the security guard now, chatting away as she fumbled for her new employee badge. The guard, Marcus, who Penn had never seen crack even a hint of a smile in 3 years, was actually laughing. "Welcome to Mitchell Hospitality, Miss Torres," Penn said formally before heading to his private elevator. "Thank you. Have a great day, mister." She trailed off, but he'd already pressed the button and the doors were closing. Marcus caught his eye through the glass, shaking his head with amusement. Penn frowned. He had hotels to manage, properties to acquire, and a board meeting in 20 minutes. He didn't have time to think about bubbly women in yellow dresses, except he did think about her. During the board meeting, he found his attention drifting when someone mentioned improving staff morale. When his assistant, Janet, brought him lunch at his desk, he almost asked about the new hire before stopping himself. It was ridiculous. He'd exchanged maybe 10 words with the woman. Penn had built his father's struggling hotel chain into a luxury hospitality empire worth over $800 million. He'd done it through discipline, careful planning, and an unwavering focus on excellence. He didn't do distraction. He didn't do bubbly. Yet when 5 o'clock came and he made his way down to the lobby, he found himself scanning the space. Willow was there, laughing with a group of employees near the coffee station that had been installed last month. She'd changed into flats at some point, he noticed, and had a sunflower sticker on her laptop case. "Mr. Mitchell." Her voice rang out across the lobby. Several employees' heads whipped around in surprise. Penn felt heat creep up his neck as she waved enthusiastically. "Hi again." Small world, or I guess small building. Well, not small. This building is huge, but you know what I mean. He gave a curt nod and continued walking, but she'd already grabbed her bag and was jogging to catch up with him. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said, slightly breathless as she matched his long strides. "For the opportunity, I mean. Everyone here has been so wonderful, and I've heard such amazing things about how you've transformed the company. The legacy your father left and how you've honored it while making it your own, that's really special." Penn stopped walking. They were outside now, the early October air crisp and cool. "You researched the company." "Of course. I always research where I'm working. Plus, your story is kind of inspiring. Taking over at 25 after your father passed, working your way up from literally every position in the hotels so you understood the business from the ground up. That's dedication. Her expression had softened, genuine admiration replacing the effervescence. I lost my dad too, 3 years ago. I know it's not easy. Something shifted in his chest, an old ache he'd learned to ignore. I should go. Right, sorry, I'm totally oversharing. My roommate says I do that. Have a good evening, Mr. Mitchell. She walked away before he could respond, her yellow dress a bright spot in the gray downtown landscape. Penn watched her go, feeling oddly off balance. The next morning, Penn arrived at 6 as usual. He liked the quiet of the empty building, the way he could think without interruption. Except the building wasn't empty. Light spilled from the hospitality coordinator's office on the 3rd floor, and when he investigated, he found Willow surrounded by fabric swatches, catering menus, and what appeared to be an elaborate seating chart. You ever sleep? The question came out before he could stop it. She jumped, spinning around with a hand pressed to her chest. Holy, you scared me. What are you doing here so early? I work here. I could ask you the same question. The fall gala is in 6 weeks, and apparently the previous coordinator left everything in chaos before quitting. She gestured at the mess around her. I'm trying to make sense of what's been done and what still needs doing. Did you know we don't have a caterer confirmed? For an event with 300 people. Penn stepped into the office, looking at the scattered papers. The Fall Gala was Mitchell Hospitality's biggest annual event, where they showcased their hotels to investors, partners, and high-profile clients. It was crucial for business, and he'd been too focused on the Singapore acquisition to pay attention to the planning. What do you need? He asked. She blinked at him. What? To fix this? What do you need? For the first time since meeting her, Willow seemed at a loss for words. Then she recovered, that bright smile returning. Honestly, decision-making power. Every vendor wants approval from someone higher up, but everyone higher up is too busy to respond. So I'm stuck in limbo. Send me the vendor options by noon. I'll make the decisions. Really, just like that, you clearly care about doing this right. I trust that. He turned to leave, then paused. And Miss Torres, good initiative coming in early to handle this. Her smile could have lit up the entire building. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. That really means a lot. Over the next 3 weeks, Penn found himself increasingly involved in gala planning. What started as approving vendors turned into tasting menu options with Willow, reviewing seating arrangements, and somehow, one Saturday afternoon, helping her decide between 2 different centerpiece designs in one of their hotel ballrooms. This one is elegant and classic. Willow held up a tall crystal vase with white roses, but this one has personality. The second option featured a mix of seasonal flowers in warm autumn tones with small lights woven throughout. The second, Penn said immediately. Our brand is luxury, but luxury with warmth. That's what sets us apart from competitors. Willow beamed at him. Yes, exactly. See, I knew you'd get it. Patricia from events kept pushing for the crystal because it's what we've always done. But I think showing evolution while maintaining elegance is so much more interesting. She was wearing jeans and a soft purple sweater today, her hair down in loose waves. Penn realized he was staring and forced his attention back to the centerpieces. Why hospitality? He asked. You could do anything. Event planning, marketing. You have the energy for it. She set down the flowers carefully. My dad owned a small bed and breakfast in Vermont. Nothing fancy, just 12 rooms in this beautiful old Victorian house. But he made every single guest feel like family. I grew up watching him remember people's names, their stories, their favorite breakfast orders. He taught me that hospitality isn't about thread count or star ratings. It's about making people feel seen. Her voice grew quieter. "After he died, my mom had to sell the place. I couldn't save it, but I could learn the business, really learn it, so maybe one day I could create that kind of space again." Penn felt something crack open inside him. "My father was the same way. He started with one hotel in Boston, 40 rooms. He knew every employee's birthday, every regular guest's preferences. When the company grew, people told him he needed to be more corporate, more distant. He refused. Said the day he stopped caring about people was the day he should sell." "That's beautiful," Willow said softly. "Is that why you still do it? Work from the ground up, stay involved in the details. Someone has to remember what he built this for." "It's easy to lose sight when you're dealing with shareholders and profit margins." He'd never said that out loud before, never admitted that sometimes the weight of maintaining his father's legacy while growing the company felt impossible. "I think you're doing an incredible job," Willow said, and the sincerity in her voice made him believe her. They spent the rest of the afternoon working in comfortable silence, occasionally broken by Willow's commentary on everything from the weather to a funny story about her roommate's disastrous attempt at making sourdough. Penn found himself almost smiling, the muscles in his face unused to the expression. When they finally locked up the ballroom, the sun was setting in shades of orange and pink. "Thank you for today," Willow said as they walked to the parking garage. "I know you have a million more important things to do than pick flowers with me." "This is important," Penn said. "The gala represents who we are as a company." Still. She stopped next to a small, slightly dented Honda Civic. "You didn't have to be nice about it. You could have just sent approvals and never shown up. I'm not known for being nice." She tilted her head, studying him. "I think you're nicer than you want people to know. You do this whole reserved, serious thing, but I've seen you with employees. You remember details. You ask about their families. That security guard, Marcus, he told me you paid for his daughter's surgery last year and told him it was a company benefit so he wouldn't feel like charity. Marcus talks too much. Marcus thinks you walk on water." She unlocked her car. "For what it's worth, I think the serious thing works for you. Very mysterious and brooding." "I don't brood." "You absolutely brood, but it's okay. Some people pull it off." She grinned at him before sliding into her car. "See you Monday, boss." Penn stood in the garage long after her taillights disappeared, trying to figure out what had just happened. He'd spent the entire afternoon with an employee, doing tasks he could have delegated, and he'd enjoyed it. More than enjoyed it. For the first time in months, he'd felt like himself instead of just the CEO of Mitchell Hospitality Group. Monday morning, Janet appeared in his office doorway with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Your mother called," she said. "She's reminding you about dinner tonight. Also, she wants to know if you're bringing anyone to the gala." Penn suppressed a groan. His mother had been trying to set him up with various suitable women for the past 2 years, ever since he'd turned 30. Daughters of family friends, executives at partner companies, anyone she deemed appropriate for a Mitchell. "Tell her I'll be there for dinner and no, I'm attending the gala alone." "You know she's just going to invite someone anyway," Janet said with the familiarity of someone who'd worked for the family for 15 years. "Probably." He tried to focus on work, but his concentration was fractured. Around 10, he found himself walking down to the 3rd floor, telling himself he needed to check on gala progress. Willow was on the phone, gesturing animatedly as she talked. "Yes, we absolutely need the dietary restriction list finalized by Friday. I understand you're busy, but we have guests with severe allergies, and I will not be responsible for sending someone into anaphylactic shock because we didn't communicate properly." She paused. "Great, thank you so much. You're amazing." She hung up and noticed Penn in the doorway. "Hey." Perfect timing. I wanted to run the final seating chart by you. I put all the major investors at tables 1 through 4, but I'm worried about putting the Hendersons next to the Chens since they're competing for that property in Miami. Smart thinking. Swap the Chens with the Martins. They're friendly with the Hendersons and not involved in that deal. Willow made the changes quickly, then looked up at him with curiosity. Can I ask you something? You're going to regardless. Fair point. She leaned back in her chair. Do you ever wish you'd done something else? Not hospitality, I mean. Something totally different. The question caught him off guard. Sometimes. Architecture, maybe. I like the idea of creating spaces. That's kind of what you do now, isn't it? Creating spaces where people make memories. He'd never thought of it that way. I suppose. What about you? I wanted to be a botanist when I was little. Just surround myself with plants all day, she laughed. Then I realized I kill every plant I touch, so that dream died pretty quickly. The flowers you picked for the centerpieces suggest otherwise. That's different. Those are already cut. I can't kill what's already dead, she grinned. Wow, that got dark. What I mean is, I'm good at arranging things, making them beautiful. The actual keeping things alive part, not my strength. Penn found himself wanting to tell her about the rooftop garden he'd installed at his penthouse, how he spent early mornings up there with coffee, tending to herbs and vegetables. Instead, he said, the gala planning is coming together well. You've done excellent work. We've done excellent work, she corrected gently. I couldn't have managed half of this without your help. He left before the warmth in her eyes could make him say something he'd regret. Dinner with his mother that evening was exactly as exhausting as Penn had anticipated. Catherine Mitchell lived in the Beacon Hill townhouse where Penn had grown up, surrounded by photos of his father and memories of a life that felt very far away. You look thin, his mother said the moment he walked in. Are you eating? Yes, Mom. Janet says you've been staying late at the office, working on the gala. She handed him a glass of wine, watching him with that knowing expression she'd perfected over the years, making sure everything is handled properly. Janet also mentioned the new hospitality coordinator has been quite helpful. Willow, is it? Penn took a long sip of wine. She's doing well in her role. She sounds lovely. Young, Janet said, energetic. Mom, I'm just making conversation, darling. Catherine smiled innocently. Though I do think it's nice that you're working with someone who brings fresh perspective. Your father always said the best leaders surround themselves with people who think differently than they do. They moved into the dining room, and Penn endured another hour of his mother's gentle probing before finally escaping. Driving home through the quiet Boston streets, he thought about what she'd said. Willow did think differently than him. Where he saw obstacles, she saw possibilities. Where he planned and calculated, she leaped with faith that things would work out. It should have been irritating. Instead, he found it captivating. His phone buzzed with a text as he pulled into his building's garage. It was from Willow. He'd given her his number for gala emergencies, but this was the first time she'd used it. Sorry to bother you after hours, but I just had the most amazing idea for the gala opening. What if instead of you giving a speech right away, we had a video montage of your father and the history of the company? Then you come on stage and connect the past to the future. More emotional impact. Penn stared at the message, his chest tight. A video about his father. Images of him laughing, working, building the dream he'd never gotten to see fully realized. He typed back. Good idea. Let's discuss tomorrow. 3 dots appeared immediately. I knew you'd get it. Okay, I'll pull together some ideas. Have a good night. Penn sat in his car for a long time, wondering when this woman had started understanding him better than people he'd known for years. The next few weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Willow created a video montage that had Penn's throat closing up when he watched the draft. His father's voice, his laugh, his passion for hospitality, it was all there, woven together with footage of the company's growth. She'd somehow tracked down old employees, early guests, people his father had mentored, and included their testimonials. "How did you do this?" Penn asked after the third time watching it through. "I made some calls, did some research. Your dad touched a lot of lives. People were happy to share their memories." Willow was sitting cross-legged on his office couch, her shoes kicked off, surrounded by binders and laptops. She'd been practically living in the building as the gala approached, and Penn had stopped pretending he needed to work late for any reason other than she was there. "It's perfect," he said quietly. "Thank you. You're welcome." She met his eyes, and something passed between them: recognition, understanding, something deeper that Penn wasn't ready to name. His phone rang, breaking the moment. His mother. He declined the call. "You can answer, I don't mind," Willow said. "It's just my mother. She's been relentless about the gala, making sure everything is perfect. Moms are like that. Mine calls me 3 times a day to make sure I'm eating vegetables and not just surviving on coffee and optimism." Willow stretched, arching her back. "Though she has a point. I definitely don't eat enough vegetables. There's a place around the corner. They do good salads. Are you actually suggesting we eat something healthy? At 8 o'clock at night? You just said you don't eat enough vegetables. I was banking on you ignoring that part." But she was already standing, sliding her feet back into her flats. "Fine. You've convinced me, but I'm getting dressing on the side and probably adding cheese to everything." They walked to the restaurant, a quiet bistro that Penn frequented because it was close and the staff left him alone. But with Willow, quiet was relative. She chatted with the host, complimented their server's earrings, and somehow got the manager to tell her the secret ingredient in their house dressing. "You're a natural at this," Penn observed as they sat down with their food. "At what?" "Being nosy. At making people feel comfortable. It's a gift." She ducked her head, looking pleased. "My dad used to say that everyone has a story and the least we can do is listen to it. I guess I just really like people, their quirks, their passions, what makes them tick." She looked at him over her salad. "Like you, for instance. You pretend to be all business, but you notice everything. The new photo on Janet's desk of her grandson. The way Marcus has been limping because his knee is acting up. You care so much, but you hide it behind this wall of professionalism. Caring too much in business is dangerous. Caring too much is what makes you different from every other hospitality CEO. Your hotels feel personal because you're personal about them, whether you admit it or not." She stabbed a piece of lettuce with more force than necessary. "And before you argue, I've been in this industry for 6 years. I've worked for people who saw guests as walking dollar signs. You actually care if they're happy." Penn set down his fork. 6 years. Your resume said this was your first corporate position." "It is. I've been working at small hotels, bed and breakfasts, inns, learning the actual hospitality part before getting caught up in corporate structure." She shrugged. "Maybe not the traditional path, but it worked for me." "Why Mitchell Hospitality? Honestly, your company's reputation, but also—" She hesitated. "I read an interview you gave last year. You talked about how your father taught you that luxury isn't about being exclusive. It's about making everyone feel like they deserve excellence. That resonated with me." Penn remembered that interview. He'd been nervous, worried about saying too much, revealing too much of his father's philosophy in a world that often valued profit over people. Knowing Willow had read it, had been moved by it, felt intensely personal. "I meant every word," he said. "I know you did." Her smile was soft, genuine. "That's why I'm here." They finished dinner and walked back to the office in comfortable silence. At the garage, Willow turned to him. "Can I tell you something without it being weird? Possibly. These past few weeks, working on the gala with you, have been some of the best of my career. Maybe even my life. I know you didn't have to include me as much as you did, and I really appreciate it. You've taught me so much." She shifted her bag on her shoulder. "So thank you, Penn, for seeing me as more than just an assistant coordinator." She'd used his first name. She'd never done that before, always carefully maintaining the Mr. Mitchell formality. Hearing it now, in the empty garage with city lights reflecting off concrete, felt like a shift. "Willow," he said, and her name felt right in his mouth. "The gala is going to be successful because of you. I'm the one who should be thanking you." She smiled, and he had the sudden, overwhelming urge to pull her close, to kiss her right there in the parking garage like something out of the movies she probably loved. Instead, he stepped back. "Good night," he said. "Good night, Penn." He watched her drive away and knew with absolute certainty that he was falling for her. Maybe had already fallen. It was impractical, potentially problematic, and completely unlike him, and he had no idea what to do about it. The night of the gala arrived with the kind of perfect autumn weather that felt like a blessing. Penn stood in his penthouse, adjusting his bow tie for the third time and feeling uncharacteristically nervous. His phone buzzed with updates from the team, everything running smoothly, Willow's organizational skills evident in every detail. When he arrived at the hotel ballroom, the transformation took his breath away. Willow's warm, elegant vision had come to life. The centerpieces glowed with soft light. The room was arranged to encourage conversation while maintaining sophistication, and everywhere he looked, he saw thoughtful touches. Small cards at each table explaining the hotel's history. Signature cocktails named after properties in their portfolio. A photo display of his father's original hotel that made his heart ache. "What do you think?" He turned to find Willow behind him, and for a moment he forgot how to breathe. She wore a deep emerald dress that brought out her eyes, her hair swept up elegantly with a few curls framing her face. She looked beautiful and nervous and so different from the bubbly woman in the yellow sundress he'd first met. "You look incredible," he said, then cleared his throat. "The ballroom, I mean. It's perfect." Her smile was radiant. "Thank you. I'm so relieved. I've been terrified something would go wrong." "Nothing will go wrong. You've planned for every contingency." "Except my own anxiety, apparently," she laughed, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. "Hey." He touched her arm gently. "You've got this, I've got this, we've got this." She took a deep breath, nodded. "You're right. Okay, guests start arriving in 15 minutes. Are you ready for your speech?" "As ready as I'll ever be." The next few hours were a whirlwind. Penn worked the room, greeting investors and partners, all while acutely aware of Willow's presence. She moved through the crowd like sunlight, handling small crises with grace, making everyone feel welcome. He watched her charm a notoriously difficult investor, saw her coordinate with staff seamlessly, noticed the way she made everyone around her feel important. When it came time for his speech, the video montage played first. The room fell silent as his father's image filled the screen, his voice talking about dreams and legacy and the power of making people feel at home. Penn felt his composure crack, emotion welling up despite his best efforts to maintain control. Then he was on stage, the spotlight bright, 300 faces turned toward him. He found Willow in the crowd, standing near the back, and she nodded encouragingly. "My father believed that hospitality was the art of human connection," Penn began, his voice steady. "He built this company on the idea that every person who walks through our doors deserves to feel valued, seen, and cared for. As we've grown from one hotel to 53 properties across 6 countries, That philosophy has never changed. It's in every design decision, every staff training program, every guest interaction. He paused. But maintaining that human touch while scaling requires more than just good intentions. It requires people who genuinely care, who see this as more than just a job. I'm fortunate to be surrounded by a team that embodies that spirit every single day. His eyes found Willow again. Someone recently reminded me that luxury isn't about being exclusive. It's about making everyone feel like they deserve excellence. That's my father's legacy, and it's the promise Mitchell Hospitality will continue to uphold. The applause was thunderous. Penn made his way off the stage, accepting congratulations, shaking hands, but all he wanted was to find Willow. When he finally reached her, she had tears streaming down her face. "That was beautiful," she said, not bothering to wipe her eyes. "Your dad would be so proud. I couldn't have done it without you. Penn, Mr. Mitchell." His mother appeared with a tall, elegant woman in tow. "Wonderful speech, darling. I want you to meet Victoria Harrington. Her family owns the Harrington Hotel Group in New York." Penn forced a polite smile, but his attention was on Willow, who'd stepped back, her expression carefully neutral. "Excuse me," Willow said quietly. "I should check on the catering." She disappeared into the crowd before he could stop her. He turned back to his mother and Victoria, frustration building. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of networking and business discussions. Victoria was intelligent and well-connected, exactly the kind of woman his mother thought he should be interested in. But every conversation, every smile, felt hollow. He kept scanning the room for Willow, catching glimpses of her managing details, but never able to break away long enough to talk to her. By the time the last guests departed, it was past midnight. Penn found Willow in the kitchen, thanking the catering staff personally. "You don't have to do that," he said. "We have managers for that. I know. But they worked really hard tonight, and I wanted them to know it was appreciated." She looked exhausted, her makeup slightly smudged, a few curls falling loose from her updo. She'd never looked more beautiful to him. "Can we talk?" Penn asked. "It's late and I'm really tired. Can it wait until Monday?" "Willow, congratulations on a successful evening, Mr. Mitchell. I'm glad everything went well." Her voice was professional, distant, and it killed him. She left before he could find the words to make her stay. Monday morning, Willow wasn't at her desk, or Tuesday or Wednesday. Penn finally cornered Janet, demanding answers. "She's using vacation days," Janet said carefully. "She put in the request last week. Last week, before the gala. She said she'd need time to decompress after such a big event." Penn wanted to argue that you don't decompress by disappearing, but he knew that wasn't fair. Except it felt personal, like she was avoiding him specifically. He tried calling her. She didn't answer. He texted. She responded with short, polite messages about gala follow-up items, but nothing personal. By Thursday, he was going out of his mind. "Just go to her apartment," Marcus said when Penn lingered in the lobby that evening, staring at his phone like it might magically produce answers. "What?" "You have her address in employee files. Go talk to her," Marcus grinned. "And before you protest about it being inappropriate, everyone in this building knows you're crazy about her. Everyone except apparently you two." Penn wanted to deny it, but what was the point? Marcus was right. He was crazy about her. Had been since she'd almost spilled coffee on him in this exact lobby. And he was done pretending otherwise. He got her address from HR, drove to the small apartment building in Brookline, and stood outside her door for a full minute before knocking. Willow answered in sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt, her hair in a messy bun, surprise written all over her face. "Penn, what are you doing here? You've been avoiding me." "I've been on vacation." "You've been avoiding me," he repeated, "and I need to know why." She sighed, stepping back to let him in. Her apartment was small but cozy, full of plants and books and warm throws, very Willow. I needed some space, she said finally, to think. About what? About whether I can keep working at Mitchell Hospitality. She crossed her arms, defensive. I really like my job, Penn. I'm good at it. But somewhere along the way, planning the gala, spending all that time with you, I started feeling things I shouldn't feel. And then at the gala, meeting your mom and that woman, Victoria, who's clearly perfect for you, I realized I was being ridiculous. Penn's heart was racing. Ridiculous how? Come on. You're a millionaire CEO. You're brilliant and successful and gorgeous. You could have anyone. And I'm just this bubbly disaster who talks too much and kills houseplants. She laughed, but it sounded sad. I knew better than to catch feelings for my boss, but I did it anyway. Willow. Penn crossed the space between them in 2 strides. You're not a disaster. You're extraordinary. You walk into rooms and make them brighter. You care about people in a way that's rare and precious. You made me remember why I loved this business in the first place, why my father loved it. You changed everything. Penn, I'm not interested in Victoria. I'm not interested in anyone but you. I have been since the moment you almost spilled coffee on me and didn't even realize you were talking to the CEO. He took her hands. I know there are complications. The company, professional boundaries, all of it. But I can't let you walk away thinking you're not enough when you're everything. Her eyes were shining with tears. You really mean that? Every word. I'm reserved, Willow. I don't open up easily, but you somehow found a way past every defense I've built. Your light changed everything, changed me, and I don't want to go back to the way things were before you. She kissed him, rose up on her toes and pressed her lips to his, and Penn felt the last of his careful control shatter. He pulled her closer, pouring every unsaid feeling into the kiss, and she responded with equal intensity. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she was smiling. So what now? She asked. Now I take you to dinner. A real date, not working late and grabbing food, and then we figure out how to make this work, together. He brushed a loose curl behind her ear. If you want to. I really, really want to. They went to dinner that night, talking until the restaurant closed. Willow told him about growing up in Vermont, her childhood at the bed and breakfast, her father's death, and how it had shaped her career choices. Penn opened up about the pressure of living up to his father's legacy, the loneliness that came with his position, how isolated he'd felt until she'd burst into his life. I was so focused on being what I thought a CEO should be, he admitted. Serious, controlled, removed. My father wasn't like that, but I convinced myself I had to be, that showing emotion or caring too much was weakness. Your father cared deeply about people. That wasn't his weakness, Penn. That was his strength, and it's yours too. Willow reached across the table, lacing her fingers through his. You don't have to choose between being a good leader and being human. I'm learning that. You're teaching me that. Over the next few months, they navigated their relationship carefully. Penn talked to HR about proper disclosure, wanting everything above board. Willow worried about perceptions, not wanting people to think she'd gotten her job because of their relationship, but her work spoke for itself. She was promoted to senior hospitality coordinator, heading up all corporate events. Penn's mother was delighted, having apparently seen this coming from miles away. I knew the moment Janet mentioned her, Catherine said over Sunday dinner, Willow now a regular fixture at the table. You sounded different when you talked about her work, like you were waking up after a long sleep. That's exactly what it felt like, Penn agreed, watching Willow chat with the housekeeper, admiring the roses in the garden. Christmas came, and Penn took Willow to Vermont to see her mother. The bed and breakfast had been sold, but the new owners welcomed them warmly, showing them around. Willow cried a little, remembering her father, but she was smiling too. "I think he'd be happy," she said, standing in what used to be the front parlor, "that I found someone who understands why this all mattered so much. I think he'd be proud of who you've become." Penn pulled her close. "I know I am." New Year's Eve, they attended a party at one of Mitchell Hospitality's flagship hotels. Willow had coordinated the event, and it was spectacular. At midnight, surrounded by friends and colleagues, Penn kissed her as fireworks exploded over Boston Harbor. "I love you," he said, the words feeling both terrifying and right. "I know it's fast, but I've never been more sure of anything. I love you too." Willow was crying happy tears. "Even when you brood." "I don't brood." "You absolutely brood." She kissed him again. "But I love you anyway." The following spring, Penn took her back to Vermont. They hiked up to a lookout point that Willow had mentioned was her favorite spot as a child, where you could see mountains in every direction. "My dad proposed to my mom here," Willow said, gazing at the view. "Told her it was important to start their life together somewhere that felt like hope." Penn pulled the ring box from his pocket, his heart hammering. "Then this seems like the right place." He dropped to one knee. "Willow Torres, you walked into my life and changed everything. You reminded me how to care, how to feel, how to be more than just a name on a building. You're my light, my home, my everything. Will you marry me?" She was crying and laughing at the same time. "Yes, of course yes." The ring was a simple emerald, the color of the dress she'd worn at the gala, the color of her eyes. It fit perfectly. They were married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the original Mitchell Hotel in Boston, the one Penn's father had started with 40 rooms and a dream. Close family and friends attended, and the hotel staff who'd known his father cried happy tears. Willow wore a simple white dress with flowers in her hair, and Penn couldn't stop smiling. "You look happy," Marcus observed at the reception. "Really happy." "I am," Penn said, watching Willow dance with his mother. "I didn't think I could be this happy." "That woman is magic," Marcus said. "She made you human again." "She made me better," Penn corrected. "In every possible way." A year after their wedding, Willow sat Penn down with a proposal. She'd been working on it for months, refining every detail. A new type of property for Mitchell Hospitality. Boutique bed and breakfasts that combined luxury with the personal touch of small inns. Each one would celebrate local culture, support local businesses, and provide the kind of hospitality her father had believed in. "It's a different market than our hotels," she said, nervous as she presented the business plan. "But I think there's room for both. We could start with one property, test the concept, see if it works." Penn read through her proposal carefully. It was brilliant, well-researched, and completely Willow, a perfect blend of business sense and heart. "Let's do it," he said. "Really, really. On one condition, you run the division. This is your vision. You should be the one to bring it to life." She launched herself at him, kissing him soundly. "Have I mentioned that I love you? Not in the last hour." "Well, I do. Very, very much." The first property opened in Vermont, not far from where Willow grew up. They bought an old Victorian house, similar to her father's bed and breakfast, and spent months renovating it to combine historic charm with modern luxury. Willow oversaw every detail, and when they opened, guests fell in love immediately. Penn watched her give tours, welcome guests, make everyone feel like family, and felt his heart swell with pride. This was who she was meant to be, and he got to be part of her journey. 2 years into their marriage, Willow told him she was pregnant. Penn cried, something he rarely did, holding her close. "We're having a baby," he whispered, awed. "We're having a baby," she confirmed. "Are you ready for this?" "With you, I'm ready for anything." Their daughter was born in early spring with auburn hair and green eyes just like her mother. They named her Catherine Rose Mitchell after both grandmothers. Penn held her in the hospital, this tiny perfect person, and felt everything shift again. "She's going to have your smile," Willow said sleepily from the bed. "I can already tell." "She's going to have your heart," Penn replied. "And that's so much better." Catherine grew into a bright, curious toddler who loved people just like her mother. She'd toddle around the bed and breakfast properties, charming guests and staff alike. Penn cut back his hours at the office, wanting to be present for every moment. "Your father would be proud," his mother said one Sunday dinner, watching Penn chase Catherine around the garden while Willow laughed. "Not just of what you've built, but of the man you've become, the father you are." "I learned from the best," Penn said. "Both of them." On their 5th wedding anniversary, they sat on their penthouse rooftop garden, Catherine asleep inside with a baby monitor nearby. The city lights sparkled below them, and Willow was curled against Penn's side. "You remember that first day?" she asked. "When I almost spilled coffee on you? I thought you were chaos personified. And now I know you're chaos personified, and I love every second of it." He kissed her temple. "You changed my life, Willow. I was so focused on duty and responsibility and living up to expectations that I forgot how to actually live. You reminded me. You changed mine too. You believed in my dreams even when I wasn't sure they were possible. You made me brave." She tilted her face up to kiss him properly. "We're a good team, the best team." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear as the sky darkened. Penn thought about the journey that had brought them here, from that first collision in the lobby to building a life together. He thought he had everything figured out before Willow, thought his path was set and unchangeable, but she'd shown him that the best parts of life were unplanned. The unexpected moments that crack you open and let the light in. The people who see past your defenses to who you really are. "What are you thinking about?" Willow asked. "How lucky I am. How different everything could have been if you'd been hired a week later, or assigned to a different department, or 1,000 other variables that could have kept us from meeting." "Fate," she said simply. "We were supposed to find each other." "You really believe that?" "I have to. Because the alternative, that this much happiness is just random chance, is too scary. I'd rather believe the universe knew what it was doing when it sent me running through that lobby." She grinned. "Even if I was late and frazzled and almost assaulted you with coffee. Best near assault of my life." They laughed, and Penn pulled her closer, breathing in her familiar scent. 5 years ago, he'd been alone in his perfectly controlled world, successful but isolated. Now he had a wife he adored, a daughter who lit up his life, and a future full of possibilities. "I love you," he said. "Thank you for bursting into my life and refusing to let me stay closed off. I love you too. Thank you for seeing me, for believing in me, for being exactly who you are." Willow kissed him again, soft and sweet. "Even when you brood." "I don't. You absolutely do. But it's okay. I love all of you, brooding included." Penn smiled, genuinely smiled, the kind that reached his eyes and made his chest feel full. He'd spent so many years thinking emotions were weaknesses, that showing feeling was unprofessional. Willow had taught him that love wasn't a weakness. It was the strongest thing he possessed. Inside, Catherine stirred, making small sounds through the monitor. They stood together, hand in hand, ready to go comfort their daughter. Ready for whatever came next, as long as they faced it together. Penn looked at his wife, her face soft in the moonlight, and knew with absolute certainty that this bubbly, bright, beautiful woman had saved him in ways he'd never fully be able to express. She'd taken his reserved, carefully controlled world and filled it with light and laughter and love. And he'd never been more grateful to be wrong about what he thought he needed. Because what he needed had been exactly what he never expected. Her warmth, her joy, her unwavering belief that people were worth caring about. She'd changed everything. And he'd spend the rest of his life making sure she knew how much that meant, how much she meant, how completely she'd transformed not just his business or his routine, but his entire heart. They walked inside together, toward their daughter, toward their life, toward a future that was brighter than anything Penn Mitchell had ever imagined possible. And it was all because one autumn morning, a woman in a yellow dress had almost spilled coffee on him and had refused to let him stay in the shadows. She'd brought the light, and he'd finally learned to let it in.